Welcome to the Clock Hour. I'm your host, Marv Kennel, and I have a couple of guests here with me today. Mr. Eric Washington. I'm going to start off in Miss Kisha Ellis. Most people know her, many people know her, and many people may not. But I have them as guests on my show today because I really have some questions about reentry, and they're my quote-unquote experts on reentry. So I'm gonna start off with you, Mr. Washington.
Yes.
Are there many reentry programs here in this area?
In this area, meaning like the
The let's say Connecticut.
Connecticut. I mean, there's an array of programs. It's just pretty much getting individuals to utilize some of the services that may be afforded to them. There's definitely room for more, though.
Oh, okay. So now these programs, are they aware of them before they touch down, or?
Sometimes it depends on where they come from. And when I say where they come from, like some of the facilities, if individuals are incarcerated per se, some of the facilities, they may have like a discharge planner that can connect them with services out in the community prior to the release into the community.
Almost like a reentry coordinator.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Which, the reentry coordinator is in the federal system. The
Right.
discharge plan and what Eric just mentioned, that's in the state facilities.
Correctional.
Yeah, and the state correctional.
So they're not the same. They're the
They
same.
are the same. There is just different titles to them. The member with the federal government, that is the reentry coordinator.
Right.
And as you and I know, and then like I said, like Eric said, it's the discharge planner when it comes into the state correctional facilities. They are responsible for preparing an individual who is being released into the community, be it having their ID, setting them up with insurance. And I must say that a lot of the correctional facilities, state facilities, have been doing an awesome job with that lately, because a lot of the people who are coming out of prisons have been having their social security number, their birth certificate, ID, and setting them up with medical, because when they come out, they need to have all their medication set up. So, I must say that they have been doing, from what I've been seeing for a lot of individuals who's been coming to my halfway house, I've been seeing that they have been having a lot of their stuff in order. So I do applaud them for that.
So would you say it's effective or ineffective?
For the majority of the part, I think that setting them up there, preparing them to come into the next, transitioning them into the next phase with, be it a halfway house or getting into the community, into a scattered housing site or what have you, I think that I would say it's been pretty much effective.
Pretty effective.
Yeah, I think it's effective.
For the most part.
For the most part, yeah.
So Connecticut is doing all right.
I would say so.
Yes.
All right. Now, y'all answered both questions. The community overall, like I've seen and heard certain people going back and stuff like that. Is it effective?
I would say, well, what do you mean?
Is it based on the individual as it being effective?
You mean the recidivism rate?
Yes,
Okay.
that's the word I was looking for.
Yeah.
Well, I'm pretty much, I'll touch upon like what I think some of the issues may be. Because right now we're kind of like seeing a spike with a lot of the youth violence and crime and so forth. And then when you look back and it's like, what kind of programs do we have for these individuals? There are some programs, not to say we don't have any, but we can definitely use more. And when you think of, like, a lot of people say, when you're telling a kid to get off the block, get off the corner, kind of this program, okay, what are we going to, interchange with that? What are we going to offer? We can always give them a word and, just encouragement, but that might not be what they need right now. We need them to do a 360 in terms of showing them a better way. You know what I'm saying? Whereas it may be programming to help with gaining employment down the road and actually helping them with employment.
Right.
Prepping them and then putting them in the right places so they can gain employment, because you figured you're taking them away from one avenue, but you still got to provide something that they was getting, but on the positive end.
Right.
And you have to understand too why they are incarcerated. They are going through groups, so they're having all these. You know, if you have these young guys who are, let's just hypothetically speak, saying coming from NYI or what, you know, coming from there, they attend groups there through education, through whatever groups that they provide within that facility. I think that they, in their mind, they feel that they have no choice but to participate in that group because that's what they're supposed to do while they're incarcerated, right?
So it's like a forced program.
It's not a forced program. Because they don't have to attend the group, but they know that down the end when it's time for them to sit in front of parole or be released or whatever, that's something that looks good that they have attended these groups. But however, once they are released from incarceration and transitioning into the community, now let's say they bypass the halfway house, because not everybody coming from a facility has to go to a halfway house, right? So they then go to the community. They go to a sponsor.
Okay.
If there is not continuous, and correct me if you think I'm wrong, continuous aftercare for that person right away, they're going to lose focus. Because now they're going to get out here in this community. It's a whole different ballgame. Now they're back hanging with the different friends that they used to hang out with who led them to the bad choices that they made from the get-go.
Right.
So, and while they're in prison, they have to make these good choices and let it look good for them prior to them being released.
It's kind of, yes, and it's kind of like breaking some of the learned behavior that they learned over the years to pretty much handle life. And, you know, you get some people that learn how to sell drugs, but they've been doing this since they was 14 years old. Now they 20, and you're trying to tell them, hey, go get a job. So we got to relearn some of those vocational skills, or even just kind of like interviewing, employment, you know?
Right. Now,
setting those skills up for them.
Men and women, the difference.
What do you mean?
I'm going to start with you.
When you say the difference.
You work with women.
I work with women and I work with men as well.
Okay.
So I work with men in a scatter housing site. Well, my original was working with women in the prison system.
Okay.
Then working with men in a scatter housing site, and now I'm back to women in the halfway house. So when you say what's the difference, tell me.
Well, is the motivation aspect of it, or let's say a percentage of them are more willing to make the effort to change or make some adjustments to their life based on maybe having children or something like that?
Well, with me, I feel, and whoever else runs programs or do something similar to me as what I'm doing, they may feel differently. I provide a service, right? I have my staff members who provide a service. I have a case managers, and then I have 5 people under the case manager who runs the house. Women, you have, when they come in, it's almost like if they're young, you almost have to show a role model. I mean, almost be like you're their mother. And some of them are adults, and you almost have to feel like you're the mother. So when they first come, they're very receptive to what I have to offer, what services I'm going to provide for them, what groups I'm going to run for them, what are some things I'm going to do to help them get to a level of self-sufficiency. But however, you can't save them all. So it's said at the door, this is what I'm going to do, this is what I'm going to help you do. This is what you're going to need to do in order for all of this to come together and make it beneficial for you. So we can set them up with services of a job developer, helping them look for a job. Because majority of them, as I say, coming in, DOC does a good job by having their identification already there. So that's one hurdle that we already jumped over. Some of them don't. But the ones that do, it makes it a lot easier for us to now set them up with a job developer, get them to start looking for a job. And again, I think now the way the world is going with the whole reentry coming in play, and a lot of the towns are really coming together to say, let's not let what is on a person record stop them from getting a job, because that's when the recidivism rate is going to continue to rise.
And I think also too, another major component is setting them up with substance abuse and or mental health treatment as well, because a lot of times that may hinder their employment, not addressing those issues. So I think it's definitely key to have those elements addressed if need be.
And some of them, a lot of them, when they come in, some of their parole stipulations is that they have to continue mental health treatment, get a mental health assessment,
Or
reassess,
evaluation.
or an evaluation.
Right.
So we do a lot of assessments as well ourselves to really determine the level of somebody, which, I don't need to get into all
Yeah.
that, but we do some assessments ourselves that is, DOC makes us do.
I worked in a couple of those environments.
Yeah.
So, I would see certain things, and I asked certain questions. I wasn't the expert or anything like that, but I would see certain transitions, and I'd be like, well, even back in the days, I worked at a halfway house, and I would ask them before I would sit down with them, like, look, is this a get out of jail free card, or you really want to work on some things? Before I would even go all the way down that road.
Right.
It wasn't that I didn't care. It was like, well, let me see where your head's at and see what you want to do and what you want to work on. So when I would meet with my caseload, I'm like, listen, what do you want to do? Right. If you don't want to do anything, then we can just ride it out like you planned on doing.
Right.
Or do you really want some help? I think I'm almost certain that these people are still out there that really care.
And you pretty much hit a key point. I mean, because at the end of the day, we can provide all these services, all these avenues, but it starts with the individual.
Right.
I have a saying like, if someone else has to do more work for you to keep your freedom intact, what does that say about you?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Makes sense.
So,
sense.
if you want your freedom, you want to thrive out here in this,
Right.
Society, you have to do some of the groundwork. You got to do some legwork. You know what I mean? How are you going to put all that responsibility on someone else, and this is your freedom. This is your life. Now, the services and the programs are good to point you in the right direction, make things a little bit easier for you. But at the end of the day, you still got to get up. You still got to get dressed. You still got to go out there.
Right.
You know what I mean? So you have to be the one motivated to go to point A, point B, point C. So it starts with that individual.
Right. Now, another question: Where is this advertised at? Like, I was in the Navy, and when you're in the military, they make you pay attention to all the little things. That's like having a billboard that says "You can" somewhere, post it. It's not there. Like, there's programs in different aspects that some people don't even know about. You know what I mean? And I found it, frustrating, coming up when I was younger. I'm like, well, where is this program? Where is that program? It's almost like word of mouth.
Word of mouth, and you get some websites, some DAS websites, social services. A lot of times, when you go in there, they have pamphlets and so forth, and and then you get into the probation and parole realm. They may have pamphlets and information on that. So that's where that individual will get a lot of that information from. Now, in terms of as advertisement, like once you're out in the community for someone to say, hey, my nephew can use these services, or my kid or my cousin or whatever, a lot of times it's not, plastered on billboards and stuff like that. It's, if you're not linked into some of these different avenues, you may not know. You know what I'm saying?
Miss it.
You may miss it. But there are out there. I mean, it can be advertised a little bit better. Sometimes just kind of looking at some of the billboards sometimes. And, but that's few and far in between. You know what I mean?
No, I just I think it's in the forefront. Now reentry, helping. I see that it's become broader from basically me starting off and learning, being in the system. I see that it's on the table now. Look, this is why, having a show like this, I'm like, I want people to know that information is actually out there.
A lot of people don't even know that the resources that are available to them. A lot of individuals, be it people who are formerly incarcerated, be it someone who's just in the streets who feel like, they were formerly incarcerated a while ago, but now they're out and they feel like they're falling short somewhere. There's still resources out there for you. it's not just for people who come out of prison are still on supervision.
Right.
You don't have to be on any type of supervision, be it parole or probation, in order to have services provided to you. But like Eric said, you have to be willing to search for them services, ask about them services, be motivated, and be. It's not going to be handed to you,
Right.
per se. So you have to be wanting to. Want these services. Some people feel like their pride is too high, especially like a person who's on drug addiction. If they fall back into
Right.
drug addiction, there's still services out there to help you with this addiction, but you have to want to do it.
And and all else fails, we got 211 info line.
Exactly. Yeah.
Where
What is it?
211.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah.
that can pretty much direct you in a lot of different areas as well.
Right, with homeless and
Yeah.
stuff
I
like
mean,
that.
a lot of people who, if they are DEMIS, DEMIS has a lot of services for people who have a substance abuse and mental health. They have a lot of programs. They have programs that people can get housing. They can get services. If they're homeless, they can get housing. If you have like you said with a woman, if you have females who have children and they're actively involved in a DCF case and they have their child was removed from the home and is in foster care or what have you, there's services out there that can help these women speak with a case manager, have that case manager create what you call a service plan. So it's like some goals, and them goals, achievable goals, but reasonable. Not nothing that's so crazy that it's not achievable. It can be achievable,
Right.
but once you get into these programs, you're doing this, then you can get on a list to get housing, and then work on getting your child back. Because one thing, before a judge is going to get anybody back their child, are you employed? Do you have safe and suitable housing for
Right.
this child to be in?
Right.
So if there's different agencies out there. There's
Right.
the Connection Inc. They have what they call supportive housing. I'm sure. What's another programs in Waterbury? I can't think of it off the top of my head.
yeah.
But it'll
No,
come
I
back
know
to
what
me.
you mean, though.
But you guys, so women has a lot. They say that there's more services for men than there are for women, and I do believe that. And in some senses, I do believe that when it comes to reentry stuff.
Right.
Like halfway houses.
Like halfway houses. They're very limited to halfway houses. If there is a halfway house, the halfway house is probably a 15-bed minimum. And I'm speaking on experience.
Right.
But when you got men halfway houses, some of the halfway houses are 45 beds, 60-something beds, and because
Yeah.
you worked in a halfway house.
Yeah.
So the services for women is limited. So there's a lot of women who sit in New York waiting to be released to the community, but they can't because there's no bed. And then there's somebody who's probably been a female who's been in the community long and burned bridges with some of their family members. So
Right.
now they don't have a sponsor. So one thing we all know, you cannot be released into the community on parole homeless. You have to have a residence.
Right.
So that's one of the things that's hard for some individuals coming out. They have nowhere to go. And as a female, sometimes there's not enough beds to fulfill, to
Right.
put them in. So
or the bed is maybe in a hole on the other side of the state or something.
exactly,
Yeah.
somewhere that's not within their area. But there's not, I think, overall, don't quote me on it, I think there's probably in Connecticut, there's, Eric quote me around 4 female halfway houses. 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 or 5. Maybe 4 or 5. But one of them got pulled back, and they made it in Bridgeport. They made that a woman and children's halfway house.
Okay.
So that kind of, if you don't have children, you can't go to this halfway house. So for women, the housing is very limited. And then again, you got some women who come out who get into these beds and don't want to do the right thing. And I'm like, yo, you got somebody sitting in prison really waiting to come out to do the right thing.
Right.
And then you want to be over
Just
here.
looking for a chance and opportunity.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
you want to be over here, keep getting these dirty urines and coming late back on your
Right.
pass. So that's where I say you can't save everybody. You have
Right.
to. It comes, you get caught between a rock and a hard place. Like, man, you can keep trying to show her. It's like leading the horse to the water, but you
Right.
can't make them drink it.
Right.
So
Like-
that's the thing with females.
What used
Yeah.
to kind of frustrate me is they say, "Oh, they'll be back," and I would look at them and ask them why they were saying that. Oh, they'll be back. Oh, wait a minute. How do you know that? You know, I just didn't like it.
No.
That's not something you put on people.
No.
So I would actually say, well, come sit down, or have you spoke with the reentry coordinator, you know, quote unquote, or, you know, that type of person. They say yeah or no. You got your resume together. You got this together. You got this together. You got this.
Right.
So I would actually help the lady out sometimes and say, hey, listen, this one needs this. I printed out the form. They can fill the form out and get going with some of this. You know what I mean? Because I didn't like that.
Because that's where people go in and judge people as being what you call institutionalized.
Right.
But that's the
Right.
saying to say someone's institutionalized, because as a professional,
Right.
you know, as a professional, it's up to us to try to break that cycle of
Exactly.
someone being institutionalized, showing them different things, presenting them different things, showing them more resources. I mean, just really working with it. It's all about time, and it's about patience. If you don't have the patience and the time to work with people who you feel are institutionalized, this is not the job for you, in my opinion. Now,
Yeah, I
Eric
mean, that
may feel
makes
different.
sense,
You may
though.
feel, it's just what it is. I mean, I'm passionate about it, and I do it, and I'm very patient with it. I try to provide every service there is, every resource that I have. I call Eric all the time and pick his brain about things, and I provide it. I mean,
Right. Changing the subject a little bit. I seen a video, and it was a collage of fights in high schools. What would you blame the parents? We all went to school around here. We all know what goes on in the schools. Would you blame the parents, the administration, or just the kids?
oh, that's Eric expertise.
Not my
That's
expertise,
Eric.
but
You know,
But that's
what I
his,
mean?
yeah,
I seen
yeah.
this video
I
and
think-
it
Yeah.
bothered me. That's why I'm bringing it up.
Yeah.
I think
And I know what video you're talking about.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of different elements in that. I think the key contributor is how social media impacts the younger generation.
Right.
Meaning they have access to everything.
Right. And we didn't.
And we didn't. Like, we didn't see, like, you know, a lot of, like, gruesome fights and, you know, things to the extreme.
Right.
Not in the abundance that these kids see. You know what I mean? It was like, you know, maybe a rated R movie. Just, you know, sometimes you listen to the radio, it's like, you know what I'm
Like, wait a
saying?
minute.
There's no filters. You know, so I would say, like, a lot of things that they see on social media with the video games or even just the videos and stuff that they have access to, it desensitizes them to crime and all that stuff. So a lot of them, you know, a lot of that tends to get acted out in school, in our neighborhoods, you know, because people do different things for likes and just the
Right.
attention of
Yeah.
it. You know what I mean? So I think the social media aspect is like a huge
Factor.
component. I mean, a lot of times people say the parents, but you know, sometimes you can be the best parent and your kid can still go out and do something crazy. And you can say you wasn't raised like that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like that kid wasn't raised like he come from good people.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's the surroundings and then the
Exactly.
pressure from the peers and everybody's on the social media wave, and it's like, you know, the kids don't want to be left out with the people that's supposed to be the in crowd. So you know,
So my answer to you, do I blame it on the parents? And just what Eric says, no.
You can't.
You can't. You can't.
And
That's something.
That's
yeah,
what
you
my
can't.
thing was. I
You
said
can't.
you have to blame everything.
it's a lot of
You
different
know what I
things.
mean?
Society.
Yeah,
the way of the world.
and it bothered me because I was like, wow, this is what's going on.
If
And
you look
nobody-
at them kids now, it's like we feel like we're so old school. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
But
even
it was
though
a beautiful
we're
time
Not old,
then.
it was. We're not
Yeah.
old, but it's so old school. We're so old school
Mm-hmm.
to look at that stuff and say, like, wow, like we didn't do that.
No.
We didn't fight like that. We.
I
just
think
didn't
too, though.
happen.
I mean, if you think about it, a lot of kids, you know, back in our time and days, we were into something.
Right.
You know, whether it's sports or you know this or that outside of school.
We had jobs.
We
We
had
had
jobs.
summer jobs, remember the
You know what I'm
now,
saying? So a
summer
lot of-
jobs at the now,
Right.
and everything like that. Yeah.
Right.
So a lot of
They don't have
times,
that.
if you take the social activity aspect out of these kids, it's like, all right, I'm not gonna miss anything. You're not
Yeah.
kicking me off the team. I don't play for the team. I'm not involved in this. It's not gonna.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not gonna. You know. impede on my like my actions, what's the consequence?
Yeah.
Because back in the days, right, there used to be people that would come to the parks and be at the parks. I grew up Fairmont back in the 70s. They had people that worked for the park department would come to the parks and stuff like that and create activities and different
Yeah.
things,
Yeah.
And I think somewhere along the line it got lost. Like there is nothing to do. So like the worst thing you could have did to me when I was young was tell me I had to stay in the house.
Right.
You could tell them they gotta stay in the house.
don't want
and
to.
They don't care.
Nah.
They don't even want to go
They're gonna be
outside.
mad if you tell them to go out. Why I gotta go outside?
Go outside. Riding a bike.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We did all of that.
I do, not to cut you off, you know what I'm saying, but I do, you can't blame the you can't solely blame the parents. No. I think maybe, some of the parents can, come together and, brainstorm, come up with different things that we can do for these kids. I mean, yeah, you can have different organizations come in, but let's meet with the parents.
Right.
See what the parents
Bring them all in.
are witnessing at home and, get some teachers involved. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So what's going on in school? So now we can see the picture from both sides and then come up with something where, okay, all right, let's come together now. Let's see if we can, start to decrease this over time. The behaviors that we're seeing.
Right. You guys, y'all know your stuff, which is and a lot of times it's a beautiful thing because, I was watching this other video this morning. And it was a young kid, and just listening to what they were talking about and how they were speaking, and you're like, they don't understand that it's okay to be smart. Yeah. It's all right to be smart. I had to realize that, you play this dumb role when you're in school and everything, and then, it's okay to learn some things and, be able to talk to people. Being in the military, you meet so many different people from so many aspects of life, and you're like, wow, these guys are smart. I want to go sit and talk to them. You know what I mean? But I really appreciate y'all coming out with me today. My show is by the people, for the people, about the people. Yeah. Anytime y'all want to come on and y'all got something to get off your chest or get off your mind or whatever, you're more than welcome. I enjoyed the conversation. I really did.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
When you said that you would come, I was like, really? Cool.
I mean, because it's a lot of information to share. I mean, and it's so much that, I mean, we couldn't even get it all off in a little bit of time that we have. But, I mean, we can come back again every time Eric and I figure out something. We're always brainstorming. We're always trying to work and do different programs that we have started. So I know we run out of time, but we can come back and talk about a lot of things that we have in the makings and that we're trying to work with.
Right. Yeah. Well, I appreciate it. I'm going to wrap it up for the day. I appreciate Sky 13 for allowing me to be up here every weekend. And I appreciate y'all coming out. I'll see y'all again soon.
Yeah.
Right,
yeah.
Just to even pick your brain, right? And that's all. Thank you very much for the people, by the people, about the people, the Clock Hour. Marv Kennel, see you again. Holla.